If any recording or live stream is made of this public meeting, it is the property of the individuals recording or live streaming the event. It is not the property of the city of Sarasota. The city of Sarasota does not have or maintain a copy of any recording or live stream. Recording or live stream, which may be edited or modified, are sole property of the individuals who made the recording or live stream. Such individuals are solely responsible for its contents. Any request for a copy or issues or concerns about the recording or live stream should be redirected to the individuals who made the recording or live stream and not the city of Sarasota. All right, so we had the printed versions. I want to make sure that we're going to go over all the changes that we see, the red lines, make sure we're all on the same page of the pages. First page we see a change, other than on the front page, changing the date, is on page 11, which is Article 6, Employee Management Committee. And then there's changes in Article 7 on pages 12.
You just, as we go through and see the changes, do you want a brief explanation on those? Would that be helpful?
We're going to go back through. I want to make sure we have all the changes,
Okay,
so we're not
gotcha.
missing anything first, and then go back for the explanation.
Okay.
So on 12, then on pages 14, 15, and 16, and Article 9 on page 18, then jumping to page 46, which is Article 21, page changes on 46 and 47.
Hang on, I'm catching up. Okay, yep, the dates, got it.
Okay, then in Article 27, starting on page 58, there are changes to that page 58, along with page 59. And then the next change that we see is in the appendices regarding the wage schedules, which appear on page 79, 80, and 81.
Yes, that's what I have.
Okay. So going back all the way to Article 5.
Okay, 6.
6, thank you. Page 11. So with that change to the executive board, rather than 2 representatives, appointed by the union president, is the idea that all the members of the executive board will be present at that meeting?
Yes, so just clarification, that is the way for the past 4 years since I've come on board that we have done that. When Barb Ross, the chief's office, sends out the invite for that, it's sent to the 4 members of 6045 and then Jeff 6046. So that is honestly the past practice of how it has been working. The thought and the idea of that is at any given time, 1, 2, or 3 of us could be called out, late on a call, tied up on an incident or on vacation. And there's been no issues with that whatsoever. And so again, that's just in reality how we have been working it. And we just wanted to bring the contract in line with how we've been working it. I've been made aware of no issue with that from the chief's office to having the board there.
Okay. All right, so then Article 7, starting on page 12. Don't have a question about section 1. That's going to reflect the new years. So section 3, we're making the change in eligibility A, which is the acting at higher rank. And is that the thought process for that one similar to what we discussed during our last reopener last year?
Yes, when someone's doing the job, they are acquiring that liability, and they would have should be compensated for the extra liability that they require.
And just to clarify, and we should probably talk this out a little bit just to gain clarity from each other's perspective. It's not just on any given day, Lieutenant Steiner's the shift commander is going to say, hey, I want one extra acting sergeant for the day. You're going to be acting sergeant. There is a protocol that goes through up to that division commander that would name someone or approve someone to fulfill that position. The thought process is if on any given day there is someone that is performing that duty for whatever reason, whether it's an extended period of time of 6 months or it's 3 days, if that person in that role were to make a decision that subjects them to liability, they should be compensated for that. We have, an acting shift supervisor who's filling in because there's 2 or 3 sergeants on leave that day and there's extra help needed and there's an active shooter and they make a bad call, well, they're going to be held responsible for that. We just feel as though the compensation should meet what the liability is that they're taking on, whether it's 1 day, 2 days, 14, 6 months. But we want you guys to understand that that's not just a decision that's made on the fly. There is a process for that. It's not just, we're handing out acting sergeant positions on any given day. There's a process. And you can probably talk about a little bit more about that.
All right, so moving on to specialized unit assignments, Article 8. And it looks like we are on pages 14 through 16, making a number of changes. Most of them are changing the weekly pay, bumping it up to 80 per week. Looks like with some being 50 per week and the part-time assignments, and adding the mobile command and the interpreters, which my understanding is there's a new assignment for the chief is already designated. Is that right?
Yes, just attempting to bring the contract in line with how we currently have things set up, and that was actually worked with the agency as far as their input on what they were going to call that position and whether it was going to be a part-time assignment. So the increases obviously are an ask on our end, but the adding that mobile command center response team was worked with in conjunction with the administration over there.
Then section 1 is the intent. All right, so the
Still in Article 8, John.
Yes, Article 8. I went back to the section 1 of Article 8 on page 14. The additional sentence that we've added in that third paragraph.
Yeah.
The intent, I'm assuming, is like, so example, there's a full-time assignment that's $80, and then they also have a part-time assignment that's $50. The $80 would be the total use that an officer would receive.
Yes, and that is the practices that is in place now. That was more of a clarifying thing. To be honest with you, we've gotten members who've asked, who've gotten reassigned from one specialty to another, like they were on ERT, they went to CID, or they were on CNU and went to CID. And so that they clearly understand they're not going to get both that part-time assignment and the full-time assignment. So we're not trying to change the way anything's paid there. Honestly, that is a clarifying note that makes it more understandable and clear for our membership when they read that contract language. And then if you have a preference on tweaking that a little bit, we can certainly talk about that.
So is there going to be a difference for the interpreters?
Yes, so the interpreters have always been different. The interpreters were the only position where you could get double dip, for lack of better wording, the specialty pay. And that has always been the case and was in the previous language. Again, just trying to clarify that.
Right, so While we're on the topic of interpreters, going to section 3 on page 15. So is that to, I guess, what was the thought process of adding that language in there?
Just clarifying, and again, it's based on questions that we have gotten from members as to, do I get language pay and SWAT pay or ERT pay or honor guard pay if I'm an interpreter? Again, we're just trying to word this to the lowest common. The language, as far as we developed it, put it in there, in our eyes, would not change the practice as it is right now.
So as I read this language, this would give the city the ability to call an employee in, provide interpretation services. Just want to make sure that we're correct.
And that is currently, as I understand it, how things are right now.
And the same thought process for section 6, the collateral team leader supervisor fee compensation.
I'll speak on this since I don't have any teeth in it anymore. Being a prior team leader, it really puts a lot of extra responsibility and work, and there is no extra compensation for it. Past practice is it usually was a supervisor, and then I think generally they just were like, well, you get paid more at being a supervisor on the unit, but now that is not the case on a lot of specialty units. It is just a member that becomes the team leader, and they hold all the liability for the decisions made on the spot if it's not like a full activation where you have your entire chain there to run stuff up, as well as you're responsible for the after actions, the rosters, the tracking, the budget, everything. So it really adds a lot of work for nothing extra, and it honestly takes any kind of enjoyment out of being on the team. I know that's not why we do it, but it does take all the benefits out of being on a specialty.
And speaking to this wording, I will come right out and say this would affect me. I did not write this language, and I did not make the request to have this put in. This was actually a discussion within SSD, the whole way up to the captain level of that. So actually Matt Kimball, a former member of the board, was asked to work with them and draft that language. Because again, this would affect me personally in full disclosure. So I didn't want to have a part of developing how that would work and how it was worded. So Officer Kimball worked with the SSD chain, the special response commander, the SSD captain to try to sort of get a fair understanding of how that would work. And then we put in what they developed into here.
And it put it a little bit into perspective. Some of those frustrations that I've resigned over from being the ERT team leader, because we don't stack or have any additional, I did not take any kind of pay difference by coming off the team. So I lost all the responsibility and duties, and my pay did not change in any way because we don't stack part-time and full-time specialty units, which we're not asking to change that. It's just to compensate the team leaders.
This is additionally on top of the specialty then. So if you are assigned a team lead, you get that additional pay on top of your specialty.
Yes.
Okay. Do team leads change? There's an incident, or is it?
No.
Okay. So it's a long.
This is the person that's generally the point of contact for, like, let's say there's an upcoming event, the team lead, our intel finds out about it. For example, we'll go example being ERT. Intel finds out, hey, there's going to be a protest. They obviously go through the support services, let them know that this is coming up. And then your team leader is your point of contact for, hey, put your team on standby, let them know that there's an event coming up, as well as you're responsible for organize the trainings, making sure that the rosters are done. Are the rosters filled out every training? And then after trainings, we have to do after actions, as well as submitting the lessons plans for all of that. We hold tryouts for each time, we have to bring on a new member, all of that. And we're responsible for all the record keeping, the oral boards. Like I have all of those packets still from past years. That's just checks and balances.
Thank you. That's helpful.
There's generally one team leader per specialty unit, and then there's assistant team leaders. And I should clarify per full-time specialty unit. This isn't something that would affect the part-time. Or vice versa. I apologize. It affects part-time specialty units, not full-time.
No, I'm good.
All right, so on page 18, this is on Article 9, hours of work, section 6. This is, you're asking that the time, the callback time you pay, be automatically considered overtime, correct? So the person is already in overtime, it would still be the overtime rate no matter what, based on the law. If they are not into overtime yet, let's say it's 2 hours, you move into overtime halfway through that, full time would be overtime, right?
Yes, this honestly, John, is going back to a lot of the special events the city has around holidays. And if someone were to take leave to spend time with their families during that holiday time, but then they're called in for a special event, that special event would be paid at the overtime rate. If it's not a callback and it's just regular working assignments, that wouldn't affect them, obviously.
So the changes in Article 21, that starts on page 46, goes on to 47. Those are just date changes at this point. I don't think we've yet gotten the healthcare information, right, Stacy?
Yeah, and we can, and I think I'd asked Ms. Mason, once she does get an update on this, she said she'd be happy to bring that before us and share what those increases would be if there are any, and we can certainly update that stuff at that time. We just, like you pointed out, we don't have those updated numbers right now, so I just changed the dates. That's one less thing that we do have to change once we get those numbers.
Yeah, effectively a placeholder for right now.
Yes, sir.
Based on the program. All right, and then Article 27, starting on page 58. We're striking the FRS that we discussed previously, potentially putting that up for a vote. Then we're changing it, that's on section 6, we're deleting section 6. Section 1, we're updating the dates. And then section 2, proposed reopener for each of the years based on starting wage changes for Sarasota County SSO, Manatee County Sheriff's Office, Longboat Key, Venice, Bradenton, Northport.
And
Yes.
not a mandatory reopener, but a potential reopener, subject to a starting wage gap of 6% or more. So if the city's officers are 6% or more lower than any of those other agencies, either party may request a reopener on this portion.
So we compare step ones, our step ones to the other departments' step ones, and just the step ones. Is that for just the officer positions, or is it gonna be for the officers, sergeants, and CSI? Or criminalists?
I feel it should be for each of the appendixes.
Okay.
And again, this was as much as what we enjoy these times together, we would like to be able to establish a 3-year contract where we do not have to meet unless there is a huge disparity. And the reason being, the sheriff's office, whenever they get their budget allocations, they can do whatever they want from year to year. And we saw that in the past with a huge increase that then we were trying to catch up. We're still trying to catch up. I believe the officers are like 3% off on an hourly rate currently between us and the SO when we break it down to the hourly. We understand there's always going to be a little bit of give and take, but we figured 6% was a significant gap that if it were to start to affect morale or recruiting, we could petition the city to revisit just that article. And that would potentially allow us to have a 3-year contract in place where we did not need to meet year to year for Article 7, but it also provided a safeguard where if it did affect things, we could request to meet again and revisit that. And as far as, like you had brought up the strike through of Section 6, that had particular dates in place that we had to meet. So if that's something that you guys want to propose, certainly we can add that back in with different dates. It wasn't us stating that we're not open to hearing that. It was just, that was in the previous contract with those time marks, so.
No, I understood that because again, like you said, his time is basically deprecated at this point because that hasn't happened.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And that if an officer covered by the CBA, if you would rather change that to if any personnel covered by the CBA, just to broaden that language.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure that when we said officer, we get everybody's part of the
Yeah, and that's
bargaining unit.
lowercase officer would include all of them rather than the uppercase specific. But any personnel would take any of that confusion off the table.
And then so as contemplated by the wage reopener, would that be all of Article 7? Or would it just be Section 1 of Article 7? Or and this is, I want to make sure I understand what you all proposing we reopen.
Do you want to be the whole? Piece of it?
Pass it's been full.
If you want to take a moment, that's
Just one sec.
Fast week on the entire article.
It's been the entire article every other time. And I think that would give the most flexibility to both parties to come up with something agreeable should a disparity in pay become an issue.
you want me to wait for Mr. Urbane to come back, or Officer Urbane to come back?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So page 79, officers. It looks like to me, it's a 8% increase for year one. With then a proposed 4% increase for years, the second year and the third year.
4% each year.
So 8% the first year, then 4% each year afterwards.
Yes.
Okay. That's for the officers. I think if I did the math right, same for the students. It's 4%.
Yep.
Then for BSI, I got 20.5% the first year, then 4% the next 2 years.
Yes. And these appendices, like at the top of these, to say effective first full pay period of fiscal year, it would go at ratification. We just want to give you the numbers because we know it's early. I know I missed Ms. Strickland's presentation, but from what's been presented, it's way too early in the budgeting process for anybody to really hammer down numbers. But we want you to have the information to provide to the budget committee to say, hey, heads up, here's what the ask is.
Okay.
So that way the city doesn't get so far down the budgeting process that any ask we make is de facto off the table because they're not aware of where we want to be.
Okay, and we appreciate that information. So I think we were scheduled today to go till noon. I don't know that we're gonna be able to give anything back right now, but we can start investing it. I have what's the next date on it?
What'd you tell Maria?
I think I have April 16th at 1 on my calendar.
Stacy did have one question.
The percentage between the steps, did you keep them 3%?
Yep, we did not adjust that at all. I understand in the learning from the first time we sat here with the first 3-year contract and all of the different changes that we thought would be great. We're trying to limit all of that and keep things as status quo as what we can. A couple of the things like we talked about, the executive board versus 2 people, just trying to bring that in line with what we're currently doing so that when we do something, we're not outside of what that contract is. And then just one point, and I'm sorry if Brian spoke on it when I stepped out for a second, the reopening with that 6%, let's say the sheriff's office in, the last year of our contract has some astronomical increase, or Bradenton or Venice, not that we see that happening, but if it were to happen, we may not want to reopen because we may be so close to preparing numbers for next year that we may choose not to open that. But it at least gives us that option to comfortably sign a 3-year contract with that safeguard in place.
I don't have any more questions right now. I do appreciate your time today. Thank you for meeting with us.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry, if when you guys have more time to digest what we've put through with it being that full contract, and you guys want to bring the articles back that you don't see an issue with, maybe the next time we meet, we can sign off on or tentatively agree to some of those others and then just focus on what little bits left behind and try to get this as quickly through as what we can.
No, absolutely. We're gonna take a look at it and see what we can agree to, or if there's proposals we want to make to clarify some language as we do that with red line. So yes, I have at 1 o'clock on April 16th.
Me too.
All right. Y'all want to look at dates?
Brian. It's on here.
You want to look at dates afterwards, perhaps, or do you want us to communicate with
That'll have to go through Marina.
I only say that because my month of March has been very dull. April is looking the same, so.
Well, I just, in Brian and Bill's defense, I think that email chain where we had those dates sort of got a little bit off track. There was like 18 threads to it, so I'm certain that's where this overlook came. But yeah, we can discuss more dates at that April time.
Yeah.
Get it taken care of.
Okay. All right. So again, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. If you guys want to use this room for some more time afterwards, please do so.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Do you have a Word doc? Okay, so
We can say the word version of that.
yeah, your priority of this, is this something that's a deal breaker? Because I mean, if you have a Word document, you
I'll
can
send
send
it,
it
I'm
back.
happy to send a word version. I'll send it to Bill's office, or Brian's office.
Okay.
Do that. I'll send it to Maria. Marina.